So in this video, I am going to explain and walk you through how we measure intent for our buyer database. And the first place we're going to start is the three levels of intent because they're all relevant. They all show intent. And depending on where someone is in the buyer journey, can depend on how we want to outreach to them. So the first thing is someone entering intent, and they are just peaking above the baseline, which I'll touch on in a second. And this audience needs education and can be a gold mine as they are not yet exploring competitors. So in our buyer database, we have a 7-day baseline. So anyone that comes into a search that we're looking for, they have shown intent signals within the last 7 days. If someone has shown signals 2 weeks ago, they're not going to be in our audience. And we can stretch it to 10 days. And that's for a certain type of business and company that wants to start outreaching. But the first stage of intent is when you're entering intent. What might be good to use that for? Well, if you have an advertising budget, a little bit more of a complicated product, you're in a smaller niche, and you have educational videos and blog posts and content that you would want to put in front of someone, that is someone just entering the intent cycle. They're searching around a little bit. They're not showing buying signals yet. And we want to put some educational content in front of them to show that we might be the best choice and the best solution for whatever it is they're searching for. The next level, we just call it medium intent. And people in this range are starting to look at different resources or even competitors. And this can be great when finding audiences that are in the research phase. So someone has left the entering intent, and now they might be visiting very specific businesses, very specific websites, typing in very specific keywords. And they're not necessarily searching for reviews or landing on pricing pages or filling out forms, but they've moved beyond the standard just trying to learn about something and actually showing some type of intent towards a purchase. Then we get into high intent. High intent, they know what they want. They have been on several pages of specific resources, competitors, and even pricing pages. They are almost 2 times the medium average activity score. So a high intent buyer in our database might have searched for reviews directly for your competitors, directly for keywords, filled out multiple forms, have looked for pricing pages, demo pages, review pages. That is high intent. Now I'm going to address Bob the Builder and Kevin the Customer. So Bob the Builder, Bob the Browser, and Kevin the Customer, they're both in the market for widgets. Bob the Browser has a consistent intent score of 50%. He's always researching. He is interested in widgets, but he never moves on to looking at pricing pages or actual competitor websites or looking at reviews. He's just a blog post reader. He's just kind of interested in the topic. So he has an intent score of 50%. Kevin, the customer, is also interested in widgets, and he has typically an intent score of 40%. He's not researching that much. He's interested in it, but he's not reading articles. He's not Googling around. It's not part of his online activity. So now is where the magic happens. Bob the Browser all of a sudden hits some review pages or some competitor pages or pricing pages, and his intent score jumps from 50% to 70%. So it doesn't have as big a jump because he's kind of always in that audience. He's always in that kind of research phase. So while we would still want to target him in a lot of scenarios, his intent score wouldn't indicate he's a hot buyer, like he's really interested. Then we look at Kevin, the customer. Kevin is typically at that 40%, and then all of a sudden, Kevin jumps to 85%. He went from someone who has interest in widgets to someone who is visiting pricing pages, Googling for reviews, requesting demos, landing on specific company pages, and really has escalated his intent from just being interested in widgets to he's really looking to make a move on purchasing widgets. So his intent score has bumped 45%. And that is what we are looking for. What we are looking for is called a deviation of the standard behavior. Bob the browser, his standard behavior, he was interested in widgets, blogging around, looking around, not doing the buyer type signal. Kevin, interested in widgets, not really Googling around much. And then all of a sudden, Kevin is hitting pricing pages, review pages. That is the largest deviation of standard behavior. Kevin, the customer, would fall into a high intent audience, which would be this line graph over here. Kevin went from this dotted line all the way up to here, and there's different types of outreach that would be done to Kevin versus Bob. Now, Kevin spiked really fast. He went from not being in our audience to automatically in our audience. So this is good for someone who is looking for, you have outreach, you have sales directors, you have reps, you've got email set up, you've got LinkedIn. There's all kinds of different things that we can do to reach each person as they're moving through the intent phase. And that's entirely based on your business, what you have set up already, or what we could set up for you on how we can do outreach to these people so you can sell more products and more services. So this is how we measure the intent and how someone enters into our database.